Yeah, the Monday edition, Mr. Relevant, presented by County Distillery. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all studios at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Also beautiful in downtown Madison. The year is half over. I mean, that is absurd. It's already July 1st. We've got the first half of 2024 in the books, which means we are closer to football season, both college football and the NFL season. We are just 3 weeks from today, the first training camp practice for the Green Bay Packers. I hope 3 weeks from today we're up in Green Bay partying. I hope we're up in Green Bay watching training camp. And I'm not technically an owner. I do not own the piece of paper for the Packers. But the owners' meeting is at noon on July 22nd. And training camp kicks off at 10:30 a.m. that morning. So Monday, July 22nd, big day. That's only 3 weeks away. We only have a total of, I don't know, maybe 5 shows before then. We have 2 this week, 3 next week, and then 3 the following week. So we have 8 shows until we're talking about real football. And we're probably going to get a big contract signed between now and then. That is awesome. I can't wait, man. And you know, it's funny. Tiny Hands was talking to me off the air. He said it feels like the NFL season just ended. I feel like it's been months. I feel like I'm ready for football. And I feel like it is go time for football. So I'm itching. I'm scratching. I'm ready for the football season. But Hunter, I'm curious. You said it feels like it just ended. Do you really feel like the summer just began? I feel like it's been months and months since we watched a football game.
I mean, it has been a while since we watched the football game, but I also think it just means I'm just more of a busy person. You know, I do things to fill my time. I'm not sitting there just waiting for football to start like you are. So I just do a better job of managing my free time than you do. That's all it is.
Okay, well, I think that's false because we were also talking off the air. Now I'm gonna air your business because he came after me. I spent all 3 days this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, once again at the world's largest music festival, Summerfest. Some good music this weekend. Got absolutely poured on at the All-American Rejects on Friday. I know we talked about my concert dilemma on Friday. I ended up spending pretty much the whole time at All-American Rejects. It was a good show. They sounded very good, but I was just getting dumped on by the rain, Mother Nature. So that was no fun. I was rather moist. I was rather soggy walking out of Summerfest on Friday. Beautiful day on Saturday, though. And Fletcher is who we ended up watching. Steve DeStoner as well, a Milwaukee-based rapper. You may know him from TikTok and his free concerts that he does all over the city with his big speaker. He just yells free concert. He played at Summerfest on the Generac stage on Saturday, so I got to see a little bit of him as well. But it was a good time. So I feel like I'm doing a great job with my free time. Yesterday, I was at the Milwaukee Public Market, went out for brunch. We saw David Gruber, walking through the city yesterday over by the Public Market in the historic Third Ward. So I do a great job. And Hunter, what did you say you did on Saturday with all your free time with the wife out of town?
I played a considerable amount of Madden as well as then did some laundry. And then
Nice.
Sunday, I worked Sunday Karma. And then I ran some errands, did a big Costco run, and then did some meal prep for the week. So I still did things. I'm sorry that I just don't go over to Summerfest.
I played a considerable amount of Madden. What does that mean? Is that 8 hours? Is that 4 hours? What is a considerable amount?
Enough where I realized I hadn't taken a break from one meal to the next. How's that sound?
So we're talking at least 6-7 hours in a row right there.
Yeah. I mean, Hey, look,
no judgment.
It's the only way that I can bring a Super Bowl back down to Dallas, so I take advantage of that, okay? Dak's won a couple MVPs for me. We've got a couple of Super Bowl trophies. Life is good. McCarthy's still the head coach. Everything's going great. It's the only time that I can feel joy from the Cowboys, okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. You can get me on Twizzler, as we talked about on Friday, or X, or Twitter, or whatever you call it, at Alex_Strouf, Strouf is the way you can get at me on Twitter. You can also get at me on the YouTube chat, ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison, your way into the show as we are live with you each Monday, Wednesday, and not this Friday due to the holiday, but we're usually with you on Fridays, beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube channels, and the ESPN Madison Facebook page. New Green Bay men's basketball coach, Doug Gottlieb. I got to catch up with him for about 8 minutes on Friday at Summerfest. See, everybody's going to Summerfest, Hunter. It's your turn. Doug Gottlieb, the new head coach of the Phoenix up in Green Bay. We talked with him, like I said, just about under 10 minutes on Friday. So we'll air that conversation here coming up in a little bit. Brewers win another series. They get the series win over the last place Chicago Cubs and the Trader. So big weekend for them. 5 grand slams in 8 games for the Brewers. So we got to nickname the stadium. We're gonna hash that out a little bit later, as well as hear from the manager Pat Murphy on all the grand slam success and somebody selling their franchise. We'll wrap up the show with that in what we learned, as we always do at the end of the show. But I want to start here. Very productive weekend for me, Hunter, whether or not you believe it. Productive weekend for me. Saturday, I went to work, baby. State of the Packers on ESPN Wisconsin with my guys Jason Wilde from Wilde and Tausch and Gabe Neitzel from Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. 3-hour edition. The 3rd year we have done this show together, the 3 of us, but this show's been around for like 2 decades at this point. It was, and Jason tells the story at the beginning of the State of the Packers if you want to go watch back or listen to it back in the Green and Gold Fix podcast feed, or it'll be airing a ton this week across ESPN Wisconsin during our holiday programming on Thursday and Friday. So if you missed it, you can catch it on either of those days in place of the usual Wilde and Tausch slot 9 to noon, Thursday and Friday. But Jason, that was the first radio thing he really ever did consistently, was State of the Packers live from Summerfest. That eventually evolved into what is now Wilde and Tausch, but it is a show we revived a few years back where we do a in-depth positional breakdown. We look at every position group, including the kicker this year. That was a new ad. Typically, we've ignored special teams. This year, we did a State of the Kicker with all the drama going on. Greg Joseph, Anders Carlson, and the new guy whose name I already forgot they signed from Detroit. So we did State of the Kicker, State of the defensive back, State of the linebacker, State of the D-line, State of the offensive line, State of the pass catcher, State of the running back, State of the quarterback, State of the coaching staff. So we go in depth. I mean, it is a really fun show. We really get to nerd out a few weeks ahead of training camp every year. And then in our final hour, we really give like an in-depth projection. What is this team's ceiling? What are the expectations for the 2024 Green Bay Packers? And that's where I want to start today, because I'm so fascinated by the expectations of this team and how much has changed in a year. How much can change in a year. As I walked to Summerfest on Saturday, I was reflecting on what we talked about a year ago on that same program, with all the question marks around the quarterback position and all the negativity and pessimism around the youth movement that the Packers went into last summer. Pretty much moving on, which they officially have now at this point with David Bakhtiari and Aaron Jones no longer on the roster. Moving on from everybody that was part of the Aaron Rodgers regime, right? And bringing in some young, unproven receivers. Watson and Dobbs certainly were less proven, and Dobbs certainly was less proven than he was this year, going into this season. Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks hadn't even played an NFL game yet. I mean, the tight ends, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft haven't played NFL games yet at this time 1 year ago. So the show is very different a year ago than it is this year. Last year, Gabe and Jason were very much telling me the glass was half empty, while I was trying to tell them the glass was half full a year ago. When they were 2-5, those two looked like geniuses. When they won a playoff game, that's where I started to look like a genius, because I believed in Brian Gutekunst and I believed in Jordan Love. And ultimately, I wound up on the right side of history with the expectations for last year. But there really weren't expectations last year for the Green Bay Packers. The expectations were, oh boy, let's hope Jordan Love's got something, because it ain't sounding super good. 3 years of training camp and practices and preseason games. Well, 2 years of preseason games, really. He hadn't really shown us any great flashes yet. There was no, oh wow moments, as Jason Wilde dubbed them a year ago. With Aaron Rodgers, when he was behind Brett Favre and ultimately took over for Brett Favre, there were a lot of, oh wow moments. This guy's got it. When Patrick Mahomes took over the steering wheel for the Kansas City Chiefs a few years back for Alex Smith, there was no shortage of talks about how great and elite he was in practice and training camp. With Jordan Love, there really weren't expectations. It was just, well, hopefully they figure it out. This will be the year that either tells them, hey, he's your guy, or hey, he's not your guy, and it's time to reset the clock. And through the first half of last year, I don't know if there was really a clear-cut answer on what Jordan Love was or could be. But the second half of last year and into the postseason, you know you've got your guy. Jordan Love is the franchise quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And by the way, they won a playoff game in a year I don't think a lot of people were projecting them to even make the playoffs. So all of this to be said for what? The expectations are back, right? This is not a team that can go 7-10, miss the playoffs, and just be fine. This is a team that has to be nearing, if not at, double-digit wins this season. This is a team that has to be competing all the way until Week 18 for the NFC North throne. This is a team that is expected to be not only a playoff team in the NFC, but a real contender in the NFC in year 2 with quarterback Jordan Love. Those are the differences in just 1 year. You go from not knowing whether this is your guy and whether he's got what it takes to, hey, he should probably be in the MVP conversation. He should probably be leading this to a 10, 11, 12-win team and maybe an NFC North title and probably a couple of playoff wins. This could be a team that plays in the NFC Championship game this year if things go right. Now, there's still question marks, I think the biggest of which is what is the Jeff Hafley defense? Now, everybody's gushing about it. The players are excited about it. But what exactly is this Jeff Hafley defense? How successful can this defense that has tons and tons and tons of first-round investment and now a high-paid safety in Xavier McKinney, how does that translate? How can they become a top 10 defense in the league? How does this offense finally show some consistency? And while Jordan Love and the Packers offense was really good in the second half of last season, there was still some blunders. Let's not forget about that Monday night game against the New York Giants in which Tommy DeVito beat the Packers. And that's after beating the Lions on the road and beating the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Consistency was not something the Green Bay Packers knew last year, especially offensively. It looked better in the second half of the season, but it was not good. So we will see. When it comes to Jordan Love, what will he get when it comes to his contract? I would imagine it will be close to $57 million. But that's the part I'm intrigued by. Hopefully it gets done. But the Love expectations are completely different than they were a year ago. Hunter, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you before we moved on to Jordan Love, as you're talking about consistency with this team, looking at their schedule, when they've got this run in the middle of the season where they've got the Texans, the Jags, the Lions at the Bears, the 49ers, the Dolphins at the Lions, at the Seahawks, that's where you'll know if they're consistent or not. Because if they struggle and they're up and down through that, of those 8 teams, 6 of them are probably legitimate potential playoff teams, maybe even 7 of them. So that's where you'll know what the team is. And if they figured out the consistency end of things, because you're right, their highs, they were one of the best in the NFL. But their lows, they looked like a top 10 drafting team. So I think by the middle of December, you'll know if they're going to be consistent or not.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's funny you say that because you remember a year ago when Mark Murphy said, hey, we'll know what Jordan Love is about midway through the season. Now you'll know what consistency level to expect, both with Love, the Packers offense overall, and really, I would just stick that to the offense because I think the defense, when it comes to consistency, is going to take longer than just half a season. It's going to take longer than 8 games to really have a consistent defense. So we will see what happens with that. All right, we got to get to Doug Gottlieb, the new head coach of the Green Bay Phoenix, Green Bay men's basketball team, national radio host, but also now the head coach at Green Bay. He was at Summerfest on Friday. I got to catch up with him a little bit, talk about the first, it's been about a month or 2 now on the job for him. So we'll dive into that coming up next. But first, got to tell you about our presenting sponsor, our friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. Everything they do, man, they do it better than everybody else, whether it's that cherry vodka, cherry brandy made with local Door County cherries, whether it's the award-winning whiskeys, the 27-time gold medal award-winning single malt whiskey, the bourbon, the rye whiskey, whatever you like, they got it. Holiday coming up, big weekend coming up, a lot of tailgates happening, a lot of parties, a lot of gatherings. Elevate it right with Door County Distillery. Visit their website, doorcountydistillery.com. Find the retailer nearest to you, as well as a huge list of unique cocktail recipes on their website. You can scan the QR code on the YouTube stream right now to find it. It's doorcountydistillery.com. We step aside for 60 seconds. When we return, the new head coach at Green Bay men's basketball, Doug Gottlieb, joins me. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. I'm back at the great Door County Distillery here in Carlsbad with my friend Rob from Door County Distillery. We're making, it seems like a summer drink here, Rob, a cherry Cosmo.
Exactly, just our twist on a regular Cosmo. Obviously Door County, so have to stick some cherry into it.
Have to stick some cherry into it with the cherry vodka from Door County Distillery, made with local cherries, right?
Yep, made with the Montmorency cherries we're known for here in Door County.
I love it. Let's get to it. What do we got to do?
All right, so first, obviously the cherry vodka. We're gonna add 3 ounces of that. Next we'll go to triple sec, 1 ounce of that.
Need it for a Cosmo.
This is actually just cranberry juice, 1 ounce of that, half an ounce of the lime.
The Boston Shake, I've
Make sure
learned.
it's, ready to go.
That's such a cool little trick.
Shake it up. Shake it till you feel like it's shaking well enough. Strainer.
I like that color. That looks like summer. Cherry Cosmo from Door County Distillery. Cheers, Rob.
Cheers.
Tastes like summer to me. Visit doorcountydistillery.com to find the retailer nearest you, as well as a huge list of unique cocktail recipes. That's doorcountydistillery.com. Let's tee it up. Doug Gottlieb, new Green Bay men's basketball coach, joins me now, Mr. Irrelevant. Here with the new head coach of the Green Bay Phoenix, Doug Gottlieb. Dougie G in the Tundra. First off, let's start there, man. You dubbed it the Tundra, life in the Tundra. How's everything going the first few months?
It's awesome. I hope the weather's like it's been, I've been told the weather's like it's been the last couple weeks, all year long. No, I'm kidding. Really amazing. It's like one of those things you dream of an opportunity and then you get one in a place that is so welcoming. And, I happen to go into an environment where Sundance Wicks did such a great job kind of turning around the whole mojo of the program, and the guys that he left me have just really absorbed the culture that Sundance is a part of, built, and I want to continue on. So I couldn't be happier with how the first month has gone, and hopefully the next whatever months go even better.
You've been around basketball a long time, Doug. I mean, you've seen how college hoops especially has evolved with NIL and transfer portal and constantly recruiting your own team, but also externally. And now in a head coaching position, is this what you expected? Is it more? I mean, how have the expectations on the outside now changed that you're in the inside?
It's an interesting question, because the first thing is you got to figure out how badly do I want to win now and how badly do I want to try and build. And so many of us who've covered it are like, well, can you really build it? I believe you can. In terms of the NIL world, I kind of think all of it benefits our level. If I was at Wisconsin, if I was at Marquette and I got the job late, it'd be really hard. But at my level, you have so many high school kids that the high majors have said, you can come, you can make some money, but you're not going to play. And then you have lots of kids at my level that simply want an opportunity to compete to maybe get to that level. And look, the couple rules that we have in recruiting is we want guys that want to be there. I want volunteers, not hostages. And we want to try and have as many multi-year guys as possible. In order to do that, we know it's not just about NIL. It's about making the players feel like they're valued as human beings, valued in their lives, as well as valued as basketball players. So we're trying to build an environment where it's a family, and we've been working, we're in practicing for 2 weeks. We get 4 hours a week, but there's been some hard 4 hours. And we're trying to kind of change the tempo of how we play a little bit faster, play a little bit more wide open, get after people a little bit more defensively. But in terms of the landscape of the sport, it doesn't have as much of a play at our level yet. There's some schools in our league that do really well, and we'll have to compete with them. But I'm really happy with what we've got in the program time. And in terms of NIL, it hasn't been nearly the factor that you think it would be, and that we're selling opportunity, not money. Right? It's an opportunity, and an opportunity to make money. Hopefully at Green Bay and maybe elsewhere. But in the meantime, all our guys want to be there, and they've shown incredible attitudes, and they've really become a family in short order.
I don't want to get too futuristic. I want you to get to your first season, but when I hear you explain that, I wonder about turnover, right? If you're selling an opportunity and you guys exceed expectations like Green Bay did a year ago, do you worry about long-term roster construction? Are you going to have a lot of those 4-year guys, or do you not anticipate that?
Look, I have one senior, and he is really talented. We know he's gone. I have probably one or two others where we know going in that the expectations are if they do well enough, they can do a Noah Reynolds. But I want to keep as many of them as possible. I mean, you look at Purdue, that's what they did. UCLA 2 years ago, everybody in their program had started their career in their program. And that's why you're able to be successful. We want a high recidivist rate. So that's really my goal in terms of raising money for our foundation, raising money for our family. It's not buying kids to bring them there. It's making sure they're well taken care of and they know they're going to stay. You know, food, their beds. You know, you have athletes who want to be treated like high-level athletes. So that's what we're fighting for and working towards. And the great thing about it is I have a president who's on board with making it a great place to play and to live, an athletic director who's forward-thinking the exact same way. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a concern. You don't want to have to rebuild your team and reteach basketball every year. And I think I'm building a base of guys that want to stay, that want to build together. And I think they're going to get better and better every year they stay.
Doug, I love hearing about it. You're in Milwaukee. It's where you were born. Your pops was the coach here. I hear you talking a little trash to the Panthers when you got the mic at the Alumni Charity Challenge. But what's it like being back in the birthplace, an arch rival of the place your dad coached? That's got to be pretty surreal.
It really is. I mean, there's a lot of different, you know, on one court. Okay, so my brother recruited Ben Bruss. I played against Kirk Penny in an exhibition game at Wisconsin. My dad had an exhibition team. Tony Bennett actually worked out with us the night before he was a manager. Mr. Gruber, David Gruber, like Steven came and played for my dad with Jerry two summers in a row. So as much as I haven't lived in Wisconsin since I was 6 years old, it's super strange to see all these familiar faces and feel so comfortable. And then, like, I remember Summerfest. We used to come back from New York, where my dad was from, and then we'd drive through the Midwest and go to Summerfest like for about 5 or 6 years. So it's a weird lifetime full circle thing. And then, you know, I got to go into Lambeau the other day, and I grew up as a huge Green Bay Packer fan. It's pretty dope.
You're back being a Packers fan, I see.
Absolutely. I mean, like, look, I was a Charger fan. So it's still AFC, so NFC, but, I mean, why was I a Charger fan? It's because the Rams, because I like misery. That's what it is. They find new and inventive ways to lose. So I'm all in on the Packers, all in on the G.
I think the biggest thing about your hiring that blew up nationwide was the balance of hosting a national radio show and being a head coach of a Division I program. You've talked about it endlessly. I'm just curious, how is the balancing act going? Because it's a lot. Both are a lot.
Yeah. This time of year is actually harder, I think, than football and basketball season. No, because there's just not a lot to talk about, right? Whereas when you do a national show, you're going to do a local show. You kind of know the 3 or 4 topics, right? It's not that hard. You know, you get up, you prep for it, talk to your producer, then you go to work, then you circle back, have a meeting on the phone, and then you get ready to work. So the rhythm of it I've gotten, but it's a little bit more gymnastics right now because it just hasn't. The NBA playoffs didn't give us a lot. You know, a lot of Caitlin Clark, some Olympic talk. You know, we'll see when Jordan Love gets his new deal. I mean, outside of that, there's just not a ton. Football season, like the rundown kind of speaks for itself. You know what you're doing. So the balance, the first week, I'm not going to lie to you, I was overwhelmed. The number of text messages, the job, I didn't have a full staff. I was struggling to get my roster. You know, how many do I have? What do I need to go get? But now we got balance, now we got a team, now we got a staff. We're starting to work through everything, and the timing of it, the rhythm to it. Once you get the rhythm, it's pretty easy. I've been a multiple job guy. I'm sure you have as well. So, not my first rodeo. It's actually really good for me mentally because I say yes to everybody, say yes to everything. So this has made it so I have to say no. Hey, these are the hours I need to prep. These are the hours I need to do basketball. I may have a window in the afternoon.
I hope you're sleeping.
I sleep when I'm dead. I sleep when I'm dead.
Appreciate you, bro. This is great.
There you have it, Doug Gottlieb, the new head coach of the UW Green Bay men's basketball team, on all things transfer portal NIL. And yeah, as you could hear, that was right behind the Alumni Charity Challenge shootout that Summerfest holds every year between UW Green Bay. A couple of legends there, by the way. Kiefer Sykes, Carrington Love, representing Green Bay, and Doug Gottlieb was there to support UW Milwaukee, Marquette, and Wisconsin. I'll do that every year, raise a ton of money for charity. It's a really cool event that they do annually there at Summerfest. So appreciate Doug Gottlieb taking some time. But yeah, we were you could still hear the MC in the background, but you could pick up enough of what Doug was saying there on some of the recruitment stuff that goes on up in Green Bay. And it's such a, I asked him about the national radio show, and I don't know, he didn't really give me an answer on how he balances that, because I imagine it's more of a balancing act than he said it was there. But the recruiting and the international recruitment, and I asked him about the fact of trying to balance a roster this year, but also understanding that if things go well in Green Bay, that's going to lead to opportunities at Power 5 schools, or I guess it really is Power 5 in basketball now with the Pac-12 being dead. And I'm curious how that plays out, because you saw it a year ago at Green Bay. If you follow the Horizon League at all, they had a really good season. And Sonny Wicks, after one season, goes back to Wyoming, takes over the head job there, and a bunch of the players leave. Noah Reynolds was one of the better players in the conference. He leaves after a season. So I'm just curious to see how that plays out, not only at Green Bay, but at mid-majors all over the country, because the trajectory and the changing landscape of college athletics is really unique and interesting. And I thought Doug Gottlieb had some good information on that, Hunter.
Yeah, and I think that Green Bay could be in a spot where this might be a recurring thing, where they're, unfortunately maybe looking every few years, new coaches, you're going to see guys leaving. But if you're built properly in the administrative end of that, I think they'll be able to keep finding the Sonny Wickses, and then hopefully Doug Gottlieb is able to do well and still have a successful team. So the program itself will be able to consistently be a good program. And then that's just the reality of what college basketball might be now, where mid-majors, they lose their best guy every year. They got to find somebody new each year, but it's then up to the administrative, or that front office, to be the ones that kind of figure things out and are the stability piece of it, where it used to be the head coaches and some of these players who you would see redshirt their first year coming in. They play for 4 years. You really get to know them as a fan, where now you may only get a guy for a couple of years and then he's off to a Power 5 school.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. And, listening to Greg Gard, who joined Kyle Bruston-Nortman last week, kind of talked about the same idea of just not college athletics anymore. Those 3-4 year guys that you get used to learning and seeing just really don't happen as often these days, right? When you think of Wisconsin right now, who are the longest tenured Badgers? Stephen Crowell has been there his entire collegiate career. That's about it, right? Max Klesman enters his third year, but he didn't start his college career at Wisconsin. He started at Wofford. So I just think the come in as a freshman, don't get a ton of playing time, and then evolve into a starter in your junior year and stay for your senior year. It's gone. It's non-existent. And, when you look at the Blue Bloods, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, those have always been, in a way, right, like 1 or 2 years and done, go to the next level, go to the next thing. That's not abnormal for them. But when you look at a mid-major like Green Bay, or you look at a Power 5 team like Marquette or Wisconsin, you just don't get those 4-year guys like you did 10 years ago. And I don't expect that to ever be back to what it was. It's more professional than it is amateur now, because there are all these NIL deals and all these contracts of sorts that you can pay somebody to come play for a year, but then if they have a really good season, a la AJ Storr, right? He goes from St. John's, goes to Wisconsin, now goes to Kansas, because the money just keeps going up. And that's just the state of college athletics now. And I think that'll predominantly more be the case in college basketball, but it certainly trickles into college football as well. But before we get to Brewers, and as we react to that conversation with Doug Gottlieb, we got to look at another college team in the state of Wisconsin, and that would be the Wisconsin football team. Luke Fickell is on an absolute tear when it comes to recruiting the last month. When it comes to the class of 2025, they are stacked. I mean, they are getting 4-star recruits all over the country. They get the top-ranked prospect today in Massachusetts, an interior offensive lineman. Luke Fickell is changing recruiting, changing the culture, and everything he said he would do, he is already doing, not before year 2 as the head coach of this program. They said they would hit the recruiting trail hard, not only Wisconsin, but surrounding states and all over the country, and they have lived up to the hype when it comes to that. So recruiting doesn't always translate, right? When you think of some of the highest rated prospects in Wisconsin Badgers football history, a lot of them haven't panned out. But it is a good start when you're trying to build something like Luke Fickell and his staff are. And now in entering year 2, they are on an absolute tear, Hunter. And I know you keep a close eye on this.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I just keep thinking back to, and I hate to throw him under the bus again, but, Tom Oates was very bothered by, and there's been a lot of people bothered by the lack of in-state recruits who have been coming in and committing. But I think about a guy here in the Madison area, if you follow our Prep Mania coverage at all, Trey Poteet. He's a corner and wide receiver at Verona, 4-star guy. He committed to Tennessee over Wisconsin, and quite honestly, it felt like it was because he's probably going to have a better chance of having less competition at an SEC school than he will at Wisconsin. He'll probably play corner there, but that's the job that Luke Fickell's doing. So I think the fact that they're not having to rely on developing the in-state guys to being great Big Ten players, they're being able to find great high school athletes from other parts of the country, and then they're just so much better than, unfortunately, the product we have here in state. And then if he can develop them the way that he had at Cincinnati and the way that Wisconsin has historically, it's just going to elevate this program even more. I'm super excited about it. I know I'm a huge homer when it comes to Wisconsin football, but I can't wait for this season to start. I think they're going to be really good this year, and the future is looking really bright for this program.
I got to give you credit right there, Hunter, because I as you know me, ADD, I was holding a pen before. It just slid out of my hand mid-sentence as you were talking there, and you did not acknowledge it for 1 millisecond. So well done by you to keep rolling.
But I honestly didn't even see it. I was so locked in talking about the Badgers.
You did good. You did good. You made a very good point. You gave a lot of good praise, well-deserved praise for the Wisconsin Badgers. But I got very distracted by the pen that slid out of my hand, and I don't know where it disappeared to. So I'm not picking it back up. I need to fidget with something. And if you've watched this show long enough, you know I usually have a pen in my hand, or now I have a stress ball in my hand. I need something. I'm a fidgety guy. I can focus, I can talk, but when stuff like that happens, it takes me completely out of it. So well done by Hunter. This is why we have him around, to keep the show on the rails when I often try to derail it from the rails. Let's move on. Baseball stuff. Yeah, baby. Brewers still a first-place team. They get the series win. They take 2 out of 3 against the rival Chicago Cubs, who are in last place of the NL Central and the Trader. But now this has just become a new series on the show, which I don't know what we're going to dub it. I know we've dubbed Pat Murphy Wisconsin's dad, but everything the guy says is just incredible. But how about this for a stat? After Bryce Terang's grand slam yesterday in Game 3 against the Chicago Cubs, as the Brewers get ready to travel to Colorado to take on the Rockies and have Garrett Mitchell rejoin the team to start the month of July, they have hit 5 grand slams in the last 8 games. Let me say that again. 5 grand slams in the last 8 days. I mean, that is an unbelievable stat as Bryce Terang launches a go-ahead grand slam yesterday against the Chicago Cubs to ultimately give the Brewers another win. The 5 grand slams in 8 games are join only the 2020 Padres, San Diego Padres, as the only teams in MLB history to hit 5 grand slams in 8 games. It's only happened one other time in MLB history. It was just a couple of seasons ago for the San Diego Padres. The Brewers, by the way, 25 comeback wins this season, the most in the majors. Each of their last 5 games come from behind wins. So this team, as I've said a million times the last couple weeks, continues to find new ways to win. Recently, it's grand slams and come from behind wins. Pat Murphy asked, how is your team hitting so many grand slams yesterday after Bryce Terang's grand slam, the 5th in 8 games? Here's Wisconsin's dad with his answer, courtesy of Dave Gasper.
That wasn't very effective with bases loaded up until about a week and a half ago. Now pitchers can't keep the ball in the park against you guys with the bases loaded. Just what's the explanation for something?
The bases loaded. It's a secret plan. How to hit homers with the bases loaded. It's been working. We bought it. It was a recipe online.
It was a recipe online. We bought it. We bought the secret recipe offline. You know, it's one of those cookbooks. Martha Stewart wrote it. Bought a secret recipe. Just working out. I mean, come on, who comes up with that? Bought a secret recipe online. Yeah, I bet you did, Pat. Buy it on Twizzler? Where'd you buy it from, bro? I mean, yeah, it's just they're getting lucky. But I will say, Craig Counsell, I don't know, bats are bats, right? Like the manager isn't swinging the bat. I know Craig Counsell used to, but obviously when he was the manager, he wasn't. The way they are finding ways to win is just it's baffling. And but they have been much more consistent with runners in scoring position recently, especially under Pat Murphy, than they really ever were under Craig Counsell. So that secret recipe that Pat Murphy bought from Martha Stewart off Twizzler is seemingly working, Hunter.
Yeah, and I saw an interview on MLB Network that Pat Murphy did this weekend, and he just talked about the fact that he tries to go in when he was a college coach and then when he came up to Major League Baseball of just like telling the guys, hey, I care about you. I want you to succeed, and genuinely caring about them as people, very much like the Ted Lasso style of things. And I think that's a huge part of what's going on with this team is he went in with that mentality, and it's just helped loosen the guys up. Like, I feel like Craig Counsell just had he has a very business-like approach to things. Mm-hmm. And I think it unfortunately puts a lot of pressure on young players, and they really needed a guy who's just like, hey, I love you guys. We're going to have fun. We're playing baseball. Like, this is what we need to do here in this spot. This is how we're going to try and go about getting these, 2 outs to get out of this inning here. But we're just going to have fun, and I'm just going to have fun right along with you guys. And I think it's loosened them up, and we're seeing what that can do when they get in high-pressure situations like bases loaded against a rival. Last year, I would have just said, oh, ground out, double play, inning's going to be over. Now I'm like, they're going yard. Anytime there's base runners on, they're going yard because that's the type of team that he's built now.
Yeah, you're right. I saw in the YouTube chat, I missed who it was, but somebody said it's been every other game. So tomorrow will be Grand Slam number 6. I believe that was on the ESPN Madison YouTube stream, or rather the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube stream is where that comment came in. Tomorrow will be number 6. It's been every other day. That comment from Sispack Abs on YouTube. At ESPN Milwaukee, which is where you can get into the show. So before we move on to what we learned, Hunter, on the right side panel where we list our topics for the day, I initially wrote Am Slam Field. You changed it to Slam Fam Field. What are we dubbing this? Because I feel like the word slam obviously fits in with the stadium nicknamed Am Fam Field, American Family Field. What are we calling this? Is it Slam Fam or Am Slam?
I prefer Slam Fam because then you still keep the am part of it. So you're ending off of Slam Fam Field instead of just Am Fam Field. So I feel like that just flows right through better than Am Slam Field because then you're completely dropping a letter off. So that's why I went that way.
I don't have a better case. I like yours better. I think it's Slam Fam Field for the grand slams that have been hit over the last couple of weeks. Speaking of slam, I've never understood Grand Salami. I've never understood why they call it that. I like salami. I got nothing against it as a sandwich meat. But why do we call do you know the reasoning behind Grand Salami? I've never understood that.
I don't, other than just the playoff of you're adding, what is it, like a letter? I don't know. I can't really spell. But you're only like adding a letter or two to slam. So that would be my guess. I can try and look it up here before the end of the show. But
you're adding an A and an I. I don't know. It's just people getting tricky with it, I guess. Ribbies, same thing, right? RBI, plural of RBI, ribbies. So I guess you're probably right about that. There you go. Slam Fam Field. Final answer. It's what we're calling it, especially if this continues, which would be great. But this is a first-place team, man. And now we are in the month of July, which means the trade deadline coming up at the end of the month. They better be buyers. That's all I'm saying, as they have the third-best record in the National League. All right, we learn something new every day. Hope you learned something new this weekend. Hunter, I start with you. What'd you learn this weekend?
It's actually Brewers related as well. Okay. I learned that the Brewers haven't had a Manager of the Year winner.
Really?
And I feel like this would be the time to do that. I mean, I'm going to be honest, didn't double check that before I just said it, but I was trying to look up the Grand Salami thing, and then I got flustered and just threw that out there, so I will double check it. But if that's the case, like, Pat Murphy better win it this year with the job he's doing. So that's what I maybe potentially learned with an asterisk.
Yeah, I would guess he's got to be a front runner. I'm just trying to think who else might be in there. Philadelphia's manager, I imagine, will have a say. But Pat, I mean, as a first-year manager, you got to give him a ton of props in the way in which they've won games. All the different pitchers, all the different closers, all the different injuries they've battled through, and the way in which they're winning is absurd. But obviously, it needs to continue that way. So we will see what happens there. But that is interesting. I can't say I knew that either. I figured Craig actually won one. And I imagine he was the runner-up multiple times, and I think I know he was the runner-up more than once. But to never have a winner, I guess Ron Renicky wasn't really winning any, so that's a fair point. But Craig, I figured, would have won one. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, according to Google, that they have not had one. So
I think I
got
trust
lucky
Google.
on that.
I think I trust Google. I want to end on this because this I find fascinating. After the Celtics win the NBA championship, just what was it, 2 weeks ago? Not even. The Boston Celtics majority ownership group is looking to sell their stake in the Boston Celtics. Not only is this one of the most valuable American sports franchises or the world's most valuable sports franchises, they're also fresh off a title run. They also just signed everybody to a giant extension over the course of the last few years. And they are looking to sell their team and the majority stake they bought back in 2002. This is going to be unprecedented money for the Boston Celtics, ownership group, I should say, that they sell. I don't know how many B's or what's after trillion. I don't know that it will be that much, but it's going to be a lot of billions and a lot of money I will never see in my life. And I don't even know who has money for this because this is going to be the highest sold sports franchise ever, especially majority stake. When it comes to the Boston Celtics, fresh off a title run, it's the right time to sell. Your value is likely much higher than it was even 3 months ago for the Boston Celtics, who are looking to sell after winning the title just a couple of weeks back. So that is what I learned, that the Boston Celtics are planning to make the franchise available for sale, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. And that is going to be a lot of money.
Yeah, I would guess that it's going to be something where like the Wahlbergs join a group of other like famous Boston people, or like maybe Tom Brady joins them as well. And you're going to get like this huge list of like notable people in Boston all kind of pooling together for that. Like the Dodgers did that and Magic Johnson was a part of it. Like it's rare nowadays that you're going to just get one person being able to buy, especially a franchise like that, or the same thing with like the Dodgers. Like, you know, obviously it's never happening, but like the Packers would be a franchise like that. No one person would have the money to be able to put up to buy that just because of what the franchise is and what the brand is, let alone all of the other stuff of like no one's ever buying the Packers. And that it's going to be like a huge number of people that will go together to be majority owners, but then they're really like minority owners. It's going to be weird. But yeah, it will be a crap ton of money.
It's a good point. It's a good point by you, as it always is by Tiny Hands. Hunter Vaughn. Thanks to Doug Gottlieb for taking some time to chat it up with us. Thanks to Tiny Hands, as always, for running the show. We're back with you Wednesday ahead of the holiday. More Packers talk coming up with you Wednesday. Thanks, as always, for hanging out. You missed any of the show, you can find it Wisconsin On Demand, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Mr. Relevant will be the first result. Or you can find it at ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee YouTube pages for the full Mr. Irrelevant presented by County Distillery. Looking forward to talking to you on Wednesday. We'll do it again then, beginning at 12:30, ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channels. Until then, have a lovely week. Holiday week, short week. It's technically Wednesday today. How great is that? Happy July. Year's halfway over. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.